Good evening, fellow ghouls and specters alike. It's your ghost host with the most tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5, here to engage in some haunted holiday hijinks by trudging through the catacombs and dusting off the cobwebs to recount a spooky selection of Halloween classics.
So light the jack-o'-lanterns, suit up, and grab the candy dish as we revive and recount tonight's spooky selection. The Jetsons. Haunted Halloween! I'm going to make Orbity a permanent part of my collection. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Dragon, I'm going to let you go ahead and start. General nostalgia for Jetsons and then overall thoughts on the episode.
An episode like this kind of reminds me that, I like the Flintstones far more than the Jetsons.
Right.
Here's the thing. Jetsons is all aesthetic, which is cool, and I love it. The gadget nut in me loves the Jetsons for that reason. Who doesn't love that car? There's so much to love about the Jetsons, but it's only going to get you so far. The aesthetic is only going to get you so far, and I think the Jetsons kind of learned that. You stack them up. Flintstones got like roughly 6 seasons, Jetsons 3 seasons, really 2 seasons, but they kind of
But
overblew.
Flintstones, I mean, it's like we got Flintstones Kids, we got like the
Yeah,
Pebbles commercials, we got the live action movies.
so I'm saying like 6 seasons and spin-offs and marketing and everything.
Right.
Now Jetsons is permeating the culture because of that opening and the flying car. Because of that, Jetsons always going to be around. Don't get me wrong, and there's an importance there. But that's what I'm saying. It's just an episode like this reminds me that especially after that first season of the Jetsons, it was kind of like the novelty kind of wears off after a while, and they're really, and this was like with all the Hanna Barbera shows to some extent, which is kind of part of the charm of the production style. They are steeped in formulas, and there's only so far these shows can
And
go, and
Dragon
they're
Magic is just casually introduced as like a thing that happens in this universe in this episode, and it drives me absolutely fucking crazy, and I'm sure we'll break it down.
so just with the Jetsons period, it's always been like a cool aesthetic versus like actual kind of like versus like kind of some meaty material or even just like something that's going to be able to I think maybe be something you can go back to again and again, sort of thing where you have like even Flintstones at its worst, it's honeymooners but prehistoric, worst case, and
Sure,
that's still
sure.
pretty good. That's the thing. But Jetsons though, it's going to be like, man, we're in the future, that's about all we got.
Right.
And in this case, we're not even really that much in the future. It's just we're in the future, and we kind of have monsters. We kind of have magic. So, look about the episode itself. It's a weak episode. And it's kind of like remember Orbity when Orbity was introduced. It was kind of the jump the shark moment for the Jetsons. So we're kind
Oh
of
yeah, big time. Orbity is very much like the cousin Oliver of the Jetsons.
well, that's the little well, yeah, you're right. Cousin Oliver, the cousin Oliver symptom, I guess, is sort of like the equivalent to jumping the shark. It's kind of they're in the
A
same
little
boat
bit,
of thought.
yeah.
They're, essentially, it's the human version of jumping the shark. But yeah, it's the problem with Orbity's always just stealing Astro's thunder. We already have a dog. What do we need another pet for? I mean, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you notice, Astro does not, he's the one member of the Jetsons family who just does not even get a line in this episode.
In this episode, no.
Yeah. We've, like, Judy gets one line in the dream scene.
Yep.
All right. So, yeah, Dragon, I'm right there with you, man. This episode, as the kids would say, is pretty mid. Like I said, I am sure that a big part of our conversation this evening is going to be about how fucking stupid the magic is used in this episode. That being said, I do want to give one thing. I do find the villain in this episode to be pretty entertaining. Like, I did cite the whole, like, oh, but he'll be a permanent part of my collection. And I do kind of like the red herring factor of the villain's plot, where it's like, you know, throughout the whole episode, he really does just want to make Orbity a costume. And so that's like the one. And I have a note about his performance. And do you know who that is, Dragon? The actor playing.
Yes, of course I do.
Yeah, it's the same actor who played Mr. Slate.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also feel like we'll get to it more when we get into his performance, but I feel like he's going for a certain vibe that I'm really appreciating. So he's like the one element of the episode that I actively like. Everything else, pretty painful. Not gonna lie, pretty painful. George Jetson is a magician. Not a premise I want to sit through necessarily. I'm sorry. All right. So background on this, Dragon. What do you got?
Yeah, again, not a whole lot really like specific background because
Sure.
it's a it's kind of an old school Hanna-Barbera thing.
Dragon, what were they thinking in the writer's room when they crafted this particular master stroke, buddy? I need to know. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So yes, as I said, Jetsons ran for roughly 3 seasons. I forget if there's like a weird kind of divvying of things like you kind of have on streaming and everything, but from what I understand, it is actually 3 seasons. But here's the deal: it feels like 2 seasons because of this. Jetsons ran in the '60s for the first season, and then it got kind of a syndication order. So essentially, Jetsons got brought back 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
In the '80s, which is what,
and that's when they were like trying to push like Judy Jetson teen pop icon.
And that's where I think this episode, just in general, the Jetsons kind of fell off compared to the Flintstones. Where it feels like if you go back, I feel like that's been forever since I've really gone back to the Jetsons, so I can't say with autonomy here, but it feels like if you went back to the first season, it would probably have more of the Flintstones vibe. Like look at all the possibilities, and we're kind of charmed by the aesthetic, and we're kind of getting into the characters. Where again, it just probably was like revisiting.
This episode very much feels like it's like, okay, guys, we gotta do a Halloween episode. What do we got? What can we do? And genuinely, the writers just do not know, Dragon. They just do not know. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, so as you can, it's a big gap. You have like the original Jetsons from '62 to '63, and you have like and we have the other 2 seasons from '85 to '87. So that's a 20-year difference there. It's a substantial leap. And as Tiki said, the great John Stevenson, Mr. Slade himself, he is in this episode as Dr. Scarum. And apparently, Orby, from what I understand, Orby is only in like the second season. He has like maybe like a brief cameo in the third season. So Orby is like this weird like addition to 2, and I think they all realize it's kind of the watered down version of Scrappy Doo. It's like
Orby really is like the lame man Scrappy Doo, which is like already like a pretty low bar.
It's basically, what if you took? What if you give a Mogwai the Scrappy Doo role?
Oh my god! Pretty much.
What if Scrappy sounded like?
Honestly, Dragon Loki, I think Scrappy Doo is a much more versatile character than Orbity because at least he has a personality and an attitude and like an ego about him. Whereas Orbity, like what does Orbity have as a character trait? Like he's basically like lame Piglet. He's scared. That's his gimmick.
I mean, he sounds like Gizmo. He's basically Gizmo who can shapeshift his colors, instead of shapeshifting his whole body.
But what do we do with the shapeshifting colors thing? Like as far as the actual
he's a mood ring with slinky legs.
Oh my god! All right.
Okay, let's just dive into the episode. So George Jetson.
Really quick, Drag. We're gonna break down some of Kokias's comments here. He's written quite a lot. I won't do too much of this word for word, but he says George's most impressive magic trick is being able to trick Mr. Spacely into convincing him to keep him employed, despite all he does is push his buttons. And yeah, we'll talk. Like I said, I think this episode, like, I'm not crazy about the fact that it's very Orbity centric. But Dragon, this episode kills any enthusiasm I have for the George Jetson character. Him pursuing magic is just painful.
I want to be very clear. Ordinarily, especially probably more so original Jetsons, I really like George Jetson, but this is.
But this episode, just seems like such a try. Like, hey, I'm going to take up this hobby, and I don't know. It's
Yeah, it's like the idea is like, okay, so Fred Flintstone is kind of Ralph Cramden, and George Jetson's kind of Dick Van Dyke. That's kind of the
I
idea.
guess so. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I'm sure there might be a better comparison, but I think in general, it's kind of the vibe they're going for in terms of our cartoon, kind of like sitcom inspirations there. But this episode does not really lend itself to that well.
No, it does not.
Okay, so
Um,
yeah.
Kogias also says, I like the Flintstones more
Mhm.
too. However, I do think it's a good show. George O'Hanlon was great as George, and Mr. Spacely is one of my personal favorite Mel Blanc roles.
It's a fun role for Mel Blanc, but let's be honest, as a boss, he's no Mr. Slate.
Yeah, that's the thing. He will always be in Mr. Slate's shadow. That's the thing.
Absolutely, Mr. Slate is an excellent boss.
All right. Kogias coming in with a hot take. He says, I don't know. I kind of like Orbity. However, Scrappy Doo is my favorite Scooby Doo character, so I might not know what I'm talking about.
See, Orbity, like as a kid, I kind of remember getting a little excited for Orbity, mainly for this really stupid reason. It's like, oh, look at the title card. It's like that
Yeah,
little
no.
card,
I have the same exact title card memory. It's like, ooh, different title card.
yeah. Oh, look, it's that little springy leg guy. He's on that.
Oh my god. All right. Also, Kogias is calling out John Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
The voice of Mr. Slate had a very wide filmography. He voiced a lot of Scooby Doo villains and even voiced Doctor Doom and Magneto.
Good man.
All right. So, with that in mind, Dragon, let's have ourselves a haunted and weirdly magic-focused Halloween with the Jetsons.
All right, let's see. So, George, he's gathered Elroy, Astro, and Orbity around an indoor campfire.
I will say the animation on this opening, like, storytelling sequence is pretty on point. We got, like, the cinematic lighting going on.
Mm-hmm. So we see like we have this random werewolf thing that has no connection to the story at all. By the way, we just have this for ambiance. There's this werewolf. As George basically is telling almost like the serial killer story of like, and then he's creeping on basically the creeper. Oh no, not the yellow wacky, not the wacky lemon skin, wild man from the new Batman Adventures. Not that creepy. Anyway, so Orbity is turning yellow with fear. Mood ring. Let's see. So George, he's basically laying out the story here. The decaying, cadaverous green mask that this guy was wearing. This weird green cadaverous green mask. And let's see. So we're pushing the George Jetson design here with the animation. Like his face is like kind of transformed with the story.
In general, through this episode, I feel like we have a little bit of like George Jetson as Mr. Hyde going on, and I feel like it's a stylistic choice.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like I feel like it is more of a stylistic choice than him just being off model.
No, he's not off model. It's for the story. It's just
right, yeah.
Okay, anyway, so he's like fang-like teeth and everything, and now I have you right where I want you. And Elroy sees that Orbity's getting a little scared, so he kind of swoops in here, helping his little buddy out here, and then he brandishes some garlic, and the monster slayed. Hooray! Jane, his wife, shows up.
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Oh no, that's always like the great part of the song. It's like in case anyone didn't know. Okay, so we have the two kids. So Jane is very progressive girlfriend for the 60s. Like, of course it's Jane.
Oh God.
Anyway, so Jane is maybe baby. Anyway, so Jane shows up. She doesn't want the kids to have nightmares. So she's like, knock off the stories. She's like, come on, honey. It's almost Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So when they come running to bed, they're going to sleep on your side. So Elroy says that he loves the horror stuff. He's a regular Greg Nicotero in the making, this Elroy Jetson kid.
Yeah, he exactly namesides Greg Nicotero, Dragon.
Would you like to take the recap? Because I'll just say aside, look pretty here. Go on.
Okay, I can.
There you
go. So let's see. George basically, Elroy and Orbity get sent to bed, and we have this gag with George where he's like, "Oh, come on, honey. I heard those stories all the time as a kid, and they never got to me. Never got to me. Never got to me." just kind of like glitching out into Mr. Hyde mode a little bit, I guess.
Trying to put a little being playful. Look, I like that George is being playful here. That is kind of nice there. But he's like, but then it's a little weird though. Like, give us a kiss, sweetie, and he's doing like the
That was a
Eeyore
little
thing.
weird. Yeah, yeah.
So it starts
And then
off kind
just
of.
how aggressively she responds to it with the whole like, "Oh, well, you're sitting on the couch tonight." I'm like, okay, that escalated quickly into like a domestic squabble.
Reminds me of my coffin.
Oh God. So yeah, just the timing of that, like generally speaking, I kind of like the whole like, like kidding around like, "Oh, I'm affected by this thing and I'm going to fuck around with you." But no, this is it's just kind of awkwardly put together. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So, okay. Orbity. Orbity wants to sleep with the lights on. Like, don't be silly, like it was just the story, Orbit, go to sleep. We have this gag where he uses his extendo legs to keep turning the light on. So Orbit has a nightmare. What is said nightmare, Tiki? What happens?
Well, I'll tell you for one thing, it's about the closest this episode actually comes to being a proper Jetsons Halloween special, Dragon.
I'm sorry, Tiki. I'm going to direct you to the image at hand. What is in the background of that image, Tiki?
Jack-o'-lanterns?
And what holiday do
Okay,
Jack
Dragon.
Lanterns
Yeah,
come?
I know, and I'm not saying that this episode is like entirely like we've got the creeper guy that we have to the scare him. He's Halloween esque. I'm not saying there's no Halloween in this episode. I'm just saying this dream sequence is like okay, like this is what I think of when I think of like the Jetsons family being spooky and in the Halloween spirit. So let's see. We have Judy's like what, like a vampire, right?
Yeah, so George is kind of Dracula looking, and Judy as well.
And
Elroy is kind of
Judy
like a
just got
mummy.
like one single line in the whole episode about like how hard it is to do her makeup or something. It's
Yeah,
vampire.
because she's a vampire. She can't look in the mirror.
Very unflattering role for Judy Jetson, but hey, at least she gets a line, unlike poor Astro.
Yep. Let's see. So Jane, his wife, enters,
Yes.
and she's dressed like a witch, and she's bringing like some
I
new
like
chef.
Jane's witch costume, by the way. I got to acknowledge that. I like it a lot more than her magician's assistant costume at the end, which isn't a bad costume. It's just kind of like, the reason I don't like that costume is just because it kind of feels like, okay, after this whole time where she's not improving of the magic at all, she's just like, oh, fuck it, whatever. I'll dress in your stupid magician's assistant outfit, George, whatever.
And she's no Elizabeth Olsen. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Anywho, so so Jane's a witch, and she brings like the new special by the creep.
Yes.
And
And it's just like a big, like, blobby, tentacle alien mess. It is a pretty decent design, I will say.
It's kind of Gilman looking, a little
Yeah,
bit.
a little bit.
Okay, so Orbity wakes up in a nightmare. He's like covered in a sheet, and just kind of like the startleness, and like it's kind of like the thing with fear where you don't instantly recognize it. The kind of lizard brain takes over. So Elroy's like, "Oh God, monster!" And he runs. And Orbity's like, "Monster, I'm running too." Doesn't realize he's the monster. So they run, and they end up in George's bed. See, the sad fact of the matter is, Tiki, is that all of this could have been done with Astro.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the thing.
It probably would have been more entertaining too.
Only one reason we don't have Astro in this role, Tiki. It's because we need someone to be turned to a costume, and sadly, we can't just use the dog.
Why can't we have an Astro costume?
Well, I don't know. I guess it wasn't popular in the future. So, anyway, so they're all we're all in George's bed, freaked out. And I do this. I'm saying this is like where the George Jetson charm does come in. Like, I know, honey, I know. It's just like, yeah, yep. Jane doesn't even need to say a word.
Right.
Next morning, so so as they get breakfast ready, they have the great Jetsoni.
Yeah.
So it's trick or treat time. You got to
this is where the episode starts to kind of go off the rails a little bit.
This is a really good line to kind of like start things off with the whole it's trick or treat time. So it's like, oh, but Mr. J tricks are no treat.
I mean, Rosie is ever on point, Dragon. When is Rosie not on point?
God bless that robot.
He's
So George, he stinks at future
just
magic.
like Alfred, Dragon. There's no bad Rosie moments.
Yeah. Anyway, so George, he stinks at future magic, which we never explained. Basically, so future magic is kind of it's the idea of press here. It's kind of it's really weird because we're
Is
not.
it alchemy,
Well,
essentially?
no. Here's the thing. If I'm right, the way it plays here is that traditionally magic is it's about the whole prestidigitation thing. It's about like it's not actual like magic, but it's more of just like misdirection and stuff. Where
Oh,
in the future though, if you can do it at the push of a button, only if you probably read the instructions first, it just feels a little kind of the hard work's been taken out of it. So what's the point?
yeah, yeah.
And George can't even get that right. All George has to do for a living
I
is
feel
push a
like this,
button.
like just the rules of how the magic functions. Like it honestly feels like something that would crack this universe wide open if this series actually cared about world building.
Yep.
Like
So he offers
we're
the
teleporting people, and I don't know, Dragon.
it's like we already live in an age of marvels. What more can we do? Really?
Oh,
It's like
God.
we have flying cars. We have we have breakfast.
You know what
We
my
have
main
water
issue
shows.
is with this episode, though?
What?
Honestly, when it comes to the magic stuff, the actual rhymes are just painful, Dragon. They are painful. Please don't make me recite the lines. I'm not gonna do it. The rhymes are too corny, Dragon. They are too corny. I'm putting my foot down.
Oh, sure. That's why you're putting your foot down. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm convinced. Yeah. So okay, so he offers to saw Rosie in half. He says like, why not? Why not? I can be in two. I'm always asked to be in two places at once anyway. So I was just like, hey, I might be. I don't have sawdust for brains. Might be made of metal. Don't have sawdust for brains. She doesn't intend on having that anytime soon. So we try the old egg in the hat trick. Apparently, some things are there's too classic to update.
Right.
Let's see. So he tries to make a plutonian peacock out of an egg, and just all it is ash. Meanwhile, we exposit that Elroy and Orbity are going costume shopping while George has his eggs well done.
Indeed, indeed.
So let's talk Dr. Scarum's Waxite Museum. It's a costume shop and a museum.
Okay. A, that's a really cool idea.
Uh-huh.
B, Dr. Scarum is delightful.
Yes, he
Is a
is.
character. He is like the bright spot holding up this episode, I think. C, Dragon, tell me if you got this vibe. It could very well just be me. I feel like the actor was kind of going for like a Hans Conried vibe with his delivery.
I mean, I didn't really think of it that way, but I mean, I guess that kind of makes
I don't
sense.
know. Like also the design is almost a little bit Hans Conried
I'd
too.
have I'd have to put them side by side really to see it, but
Uh,
I guess sure. I mean, it's not a wrong possibility. Many times the voice
that's kind of why I
patterns.
cited the whole like we'll make Orbity a permanent part of my collection. Doesn't that line in particular just sound like Captain Hook?
Mm, maybe.
All right, all right.
Again, I don't know. I'd have to really put them side by side, but I maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit.
All
So
right, I'll take a little bit. I'll take a
yeah,
little bit.
again, I have to hear it again just to really know
Uh-huh.
for sure. Anyway, so Dr. Scarum, he um he tells Edgar, who is it's funny that we actually name dropped Igor and yet we have Edgar here.
Right, right.
So we have Edgar, who essentially is like a Tin Man version of Igor, which is kind of a neat idea. They need power for essentially a Frankenstein monster, and of course the wonderful John Stevenson as Dr. Scarum, as we've already established. We create much like in the line of a young Frankenstein. We have a dancing monster who's not quite scary, but he's a dancing monster. He's a
So
dancing machine.
this gag also just like it comes up twice in the episode. It really has nothing to do with the rest of the episode, and I think both times it goes on for far too long. Very much feels like, hey, here's a robot dancing. Like, yeah, Hanna-Barbera filler. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being really cynical about it. I
Maybe
don't know.
a little bit there, But so the problem is the Waxlight Museum is not getting the visitors it wants to because they're in competition with guess what, folks?
That James Cameron with his fucking 3D movies.
This is kind of where we go, we go full circle here. It's kind of like that scene from Back to the Future with the 3D shark. Only it's like we
God damn that James Cameron!
Exactly. It's like basically we can blame Cameron for the major resurgence of 3D in the future.
So essentially, he's Martin Scorsese. It's like I have the real cinema.
I mean, that's just a stretch to put down Scorsese, but okay.
I'm sorry.
A little bit there. I just think, anyways, with Cameron, though, it's basically, so the 3D movies, which, were then kind of big in the 80s, and now it's sort of like, Anyway, so, no one's gone for any, they haven't really had any luck with any really cool new designs all season. They haven't sold one new design all season. They're kind of in a funk. Meanwhile, on this really cool monster-shaped monitor, by the way, I love this monitor.
It is pretty cool.
They see Orby, and they are inspired. So we have this little teleport button where he basically, so I guess I think he teleports with a little bit more.
We need no blood!
Yes. So he teleports there. We're at the costume shop. Welcome to the costume shop, Waxlight Museum. And Orby, he's already scared off as they drop kind of like this cool looking worm looking design there. This Saturn slug costume, more accurately. And he's hey, you need a ticket for the museum. He's run through the museum and he's scared by all the Waxlight animatronics, it would seem. And he flees with Elroy, and now they're going after Orbity because they need that Orbity.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of charming that like they are like the writing of their lines is like intentionally like sketchy, but like when you rewatch the episode knowing their intentions, it does check out. He says he wants to add Orbity as a permanent part of his collection, but he didn't say Orbity himself. He just says like, he's going to make a costume of Orbity and add the costume as a part of his collection. So I don't know. I do think there's a little bit of rewatchability there.
Just someone holding up like some pages. You're like, who rewrote this? And they all look, red herring.
Oh God! Oh my God! Yes.
What? It needed some vagaries.
Oh my God.
Okay. So we're going to Spacely Sprockets, Tiki. There he is. There's Mr. Spacely. Look at him. He's in the box.
I see him.
Yeah, so put him in the old separating box trick.
He looks very comfortable in the box, Dragon.
Yes. So, so the box trick works, and it's interesting that apparently George can get half the tricks right. He can get the first part, but he can never get the fixing of the trick right. He can make him disappear, can separate him. It's going to work great. But I can't put them back together again properly.
Yep, it seems like that is his Achilles heel.
But you know what's funny about this? He had a really genuinely nice moment, Mr. Spacely, before it all went belly up. Because he said, I knew you could do it, boy. It's like, oh my God. I was really
No, it's like, yeah, I did notice. I kind of took note. It's like, hey, there's like a little shade of Mr. Slate.
Yeah, he's never been that nice to George before.
Right,
That's really nice. He's giving him a pat on the back, and then instantly going to be a smack on the back.
Oh God.
Anyway, so Cogswell calls for the annual Halloween bet talk, and basically, you can pay me now, Spacely, or you can then just save some time. So basically, they raise the stakes to $10,000. Basically, whoever loses the costume, whoever gets
Spacely raises it to $5,000, I think. No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he raises it to
Cogswell,
5,000, and then Spacely doubles it. He's like, "Oh yeah, 10,000."
Like an idiot. So he then goes to 10,000, and whoever has the better costume will get the money. So meanwhile, this is like, Jetson, get me out of here, sir. I'm doing the best I can. I'm not a magician.
Which, I don't know, that line I feel like is very, very awkward considering George, is he or isn't he? It's very indecisive because throughout the episode he randomly feels like he has a new passion in life, Dragon, and it is cheap magician's tricks.
Yeah, it's very wishy-washy. Elroy and Orbity, they're at the mall. We use the extendo legs to spot Edgar, and we hide
I
in the
will say the extendo legs are my favorite part of Orbity's design.
That's what I'm saying. It's all aesthetic, man. Orbity
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
great, but when you
yeah.
think about it, it's like, oh, so he's just kind of like a lame version of a Mogwai,
Right,
but he has cool legs though.
right.
Anyway, so we see. Okay, so let's see. So what they see is the Mongo. I believe it's the Mongo space vampire movie. So there's no creeper in there. It would seem as Elroy's like, there's no creeper. There's like, stop, come on, man, stop making a nuisance of yourself. And then Tiki, they say the title. It's the Mongo space vampire.
Yeah, they walk in at a very convenient moment.
Yep. And Elroy's convinced when Edgar arrives and tries to capture them, seemingly.
I
So
will say the robot definitely does not do a good job of like making them feel at ease.
Nope.
It's like my master needs you.
Bum bum bum. So I like the robot usher gag, by the way. So they run out and say, "Oh no, too satisfied."
That feels like a SpongeBob gag for some reason. I don't know why.
A little bit. I think Spielberg would love this joke. So, two satisfied customers, then everyone is running away. Like
it's gonna be a blockbuster.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So George, he begs Mr. Spacely, just like, come on, let me show you one more trick. Is like, Jetson, I'm so bad up to here. I got this bet on my mind. I don't really have. Like, he doesn't want to see any tricks. And then Jetson basically begs, like, look, I'll get you a costume that's sure to win. If not, you can fire me. George, why would you make that very very poor offer on yourself? You're way adding more stress.
And then on top of that, it's like I gotta say, like Mr. Spacely's reaction, like on paper, it's funny, but it comes across as just again more awkward timing, where it's like, okay, the dude's cheered up by the proposition of firing someone. I don't know. Did this come across as awkward to you?
No, I thought it was kind of funny though. Okay, now Spacely
okay,
with the threat of firing George now with the stakes of George Jetson being fired, is like, the thought of firing someone has actually improved my move. Okay, Jetson, one more trick. What do you got? So it does the floating trick, which again works well, but he can't undo it. So Spacely floats through a window.
But also, like again, this is like some game breaking power. Like if they actually cared about the continuity of like, these magical powers that they're suddenly introducing into the Jetsons lore.
Yeah, I mean, the darker version of this episode is Spacely flies through the window and he does not fly back down.
right, exactly.
And they say, like, later today and future news, Spacely Sprocket's head has been found floating in the vacuum of space. He was a frozen dead body, and we're trying to find out who the culprit of this is.
Oh, man.
Okay, so Scarum and Edgar, they're back at square one, but they have the good fortune of now Jetson, eager to please Miss Spacely, is showing up there for costume. They meet George Jetson. They realize the last name, like, oh boy, it's Elroy Jetson's father. We have our in, so they offer him magic lessons, private lessons.
His boy Elroy.
His boy Elroy. I just love that with the intros of these characters. That's so. Anyway, so one could say they meet George Jetson.
Oh my god! Yes.
Anyway, so they tell him, like, we'll give you private lessons at home. Well, I mean, we're going to go out to dinner tonight, but it's free tonight only. So he's swayed. So we have George pulling the egg trick. The egg turns to a pigeon, but it's a one-shot trick because the bird flies off.
Yeah, so you're right, Dragon. It is pretty consistent where it's like he can actually achieve the trick, but like it just never lands.
Yeah.
When was George born? I don't know. That's a good question.
Probably, I'd say maybe 40 years before the Jetsons. 35, 40 years before the Jetsons. I don't know. How old does George look to you?
I always thought with George and Fred, like kind of like early to mid 40s.
That's the thing. I don't know, Fred might be a little younger. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. However, point is, however old Jackie Gleason is to Heimers, that's how old Fred Flintstone probably is. So there you go. Okay. Anywho, yes. So let's see. So they're sorry. We're at the Jetsons' home.
Yes.
Dr. Scarum arrives as a great magician. He actually is a really good magician, it would seem. Makes Astro disappear. At least he has something to do in the episode, even though he doesn't speak.
I mean, isn't that just symbolic of his role in the episode?
Yeah. We have kind of a series of unfortunate events-esque moment here where Elroy and Orby are trying to explain to George, like, no, that's Count Olaf.
It totally is, right?
Yeah, but he's thinking they have overactive imaginations. We use the old trading places trick, and no, they don't turn to Eddie Murphy. No, George here, he performs the trick, and he seemingly makes them disappear, and they don't come back. Bum bum bum, and you think George be on a head trip over what's happening.
Can we also point out just how melancholy the music gets in this one cut to commercial? And Elroy's just like, he's gone, Dad. We might never see him again.
Yeah,
And it's like literal, like world's tiniest violin playing, like, doo-doo. I don't know.
I can appreciate the pathos they're going for there, but it's just the episode does not really support that.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, do you really think that this is the episode where we're just gonna fucking murder Orbity, folks?
I would be so impressed if they did that. I'm just saying, like that would be doing like the Jim Henson's dinosaur thing, you know? It's
like the episode ends, like Act 3 plays out, where it's like they show up and Orby's already been turned into a wax figure. You're too late. You're fucked. He's part of the collection now.
What I'm saying, it's like I'm talking about like I was hyped this up to people. There's this episode, I think it's like episode 10 or 11 in the first season. I think it's 10. Where these characters, bite the dust in very traumatic ways. Like, oh god, we did this in like the episode 10 of the first season. Right. This is amazing.
All right. Anyways.
All right. So George and Elroy, they sneak into Dr. Scarum's, thinking he's going to turn Orbity into a waxite display, which is not good. It's like they see him measuring Orpig. Oh god, they're going to measure him so they can stuff him.
I do like the subtle hint that it does seem like Orbity is going along with taking the measurements. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like he's resisting it. So again, like as far as like the red herrings go, it's honestly probably about the best written element of this episode.
Yeah. So let's see. I think we have some comments we might want to chat out real quick here.
Mm-hmm.
Little Blue.
Okay, Little Blue says, can I just say, I like how there are different shadows on the moon for whatever Halloweenish material you guys cover.
Yes.
Yeah, and we will take another opportunity to thank Jacob Weil for that. It is he has been a great help with the thumbnails and giving the channel its branding over the years. So again, Jacob Weil, thumbnail extraordinaire. All right. What did I call him last time? Our thumbnail guru or something?
I don't know. I don't know if you said guru or not.
It was like some sort of weird, like really hyping him up. Anyway,
we're gonna change his name from Jacob Weil to Jacob Wonderkin.
Oh my god! All right.
There you go. All right. So, okay. So George and Elroy, they enter in a really cool monster suit. Which I get them. I think they unveil themselves a little too soon. Like, let them show up. Let them get a little.
Yeah, they do. They do. It is kind of awkwardly timed, like just about everything else in the episode.
Because we need a Hanna-Barbera chase. Otherwise, it's like every time you watch a procedural cop show or Blue Bloods, for example. You ever watch Blue Bloods? They'll say, "Hey, stop!" or "Hey, we want to talk to you," or "Hey, you're under arrest." When they're like a few yards away from the guy, it's like, hey, no, why don't you walk up to him and then say that? Right. Okay, because there's always got to be a chase scene. We can't just like walk up to him first and then say that. Anyway, so a little mini chase scene going on here. He says, "Oh, Mr. Jetson, I abhor violence," and then he activates the monster, and then the monster is like aggressively dancing with him.
Yeah, because we just need more filler in this episode, Dragon.
Yep. Anyway, so point being, he is our seemingly our villain is defeated, but also like it's kind of like a harmless thing versus like the true blue Frankenstein story here. It's like the harmless version of that. Okay, so Orbity here. Orbity says, "Let him go." He says, "Let him go," and let him explain.
God.
So anyway, so Scarum explains that no, I didn't want to turn him into a waxite. That was designing a costume in his honor. Yes, but to help the
Yes,
business out.
let's make a costume in honor of the great, memorable character Orbity Dragon.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anyways.
Okay, so George, he gives permission for this on two conditions.
Yep.
One, his boss needs a good magic act. Two, also needs good costume. You need one costume. So thanks to Scarum, George and Jane, they're actually they're actually really they're putting on a really good show, magic show from the Space Lean Company at
Again,
Space Rockets.
not very Halloween centric. Like you are right. There are jack o' lanterns in the background, but that's really about it as far as the Halloween goes.
Indeed, there are.
All right, and then the last gag with Spacely.
Yes, so Spacely seemingly has the best costume of the place, a one-of-a-kind costume initially, it would seem. He's wearing the Orbity costume.
Yes.
Then we reveal Cogswell is wearing the same exact costume.
With some bold BS rules, I gotta say. Like
Apparently, Spacely's such a moron. He has this condition of
last year's winner gets the money if there's a tie, Spacely.
just such an idiot. See, this is why Mr. Spacely's no Mr. Slate. Okay, Mr. Slate's awesome.
And then George just acts like an awkward idiot and accidentally like just disappears Mr. Spacely.
Like he was going to disappear himself and ended up disappearing
And that's the
Spacely.
end. And it's frankly a very awkward and random note to go out on, just like this whole episode is kind of awkward and random from front to bottom.
Back to my old tricks again, says he.
So yeah, Dragon, that was I think pretty definitively the weakest of our lineup this year.
Yeah, pretty much. Here's the thing.
I don't really know what else there is to say. Like I said, I do think that Dr. Scarum is a fun kind of like red herring villain. That's really about it. There's really not a lot of meat on them bones here.
Yeah. Look, that's the thing. I don't know if you want to, in terms of weeks. For me, this is definitely the low point of this season for us. The Haunted Holiday Hijinks, but I don't know. I want to stack them up against each other. I don't know. I think some people might say Jason X is worse, but I don't think that's
Hard disagree.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't. I'm just saying. I don't know. Some people
Jason
who
X is
aggressively.
memorable hypothetical, sir.
That's what I'm saying. So it's funny that we have kind of like we have two future based kind of things there that are like,
right.
that are probably not the best of their respective franchises, but at the end of the day, I would say Jason X is there's a lot more going forth than this. I had higher hopes for this episode. I won't lie to you. I kind of forgot the the whole. I forgot the whole. I knew there was a syndication thing with Jetsons. I did not know it was like that wide a gap between like, how that worked. That's what I knew there was going to be. Okay, we're going to have Orbity most likely in the episode. And you're going to be a cutesy factor, but I did not. I didn't expect it to go like this. So yeah, I'm a little let down, but it's given me even greater appreciation for the Flintstones as I traditionally have.
Sure. All right, Jason X is worse as a movie, but it's like memorable and entertaining. This one is just regular.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Are you guys Little Blue's asking if we are down to cover the Jetsons movie? Probably at some point, Little Blue.
This is kind of hard to find an occasion, but at some point, we're not against covering it. It's just we haven't really found.
Maybe if we did like a month devoted to like theatrical Hanna-Barbera movies.
Yeah, there's a question: how much are there really of those?
There's the 2 live-action Flintstones movies,
which we've already done.
You're right, we have.
That's the thing, yeah.
I totally forgot we did those. All right, well, whatever, we'll pencil it. But I would be interested because honestly, the Jetsons movie is because that's the one where they tried to push Tiffany as Judy Jetson, and it was like the big height of like Judy Jetson as the pop icon. So
Yeah.
it is an interesting, like I'm sure it's not a great movie, but it is an interesting piece of pop culture. So I'd be down to cover it.
Yeah. Has a very tragic story attached to that movie.
It's also the Top Cats movie that is so underrated. There are some theatrical Hanna-Barbera films like Yogi Bear. Yeah, well, maybe we'll see. We'll see. All right. Well, Dragon, should we go ahead and get out of here
Yeah.
tonight? Okay, don't forget, guys. Tonight at 11:30. I said it for 11:30 just because I wasn't sure how long this was going to go on.
Do we want to
So
change that, or do
11:30.
we?
So roughly a
Are we
little
stick-
over a half hour from now, we will be going live with our Andy Griffith The Haunted House coverage. So I hope to see you guys there. All right, folks. That's the end of tonight's spooky selection. And our spirits grow weary. Really quick, of course, I'd like to thank Little Blue, Richard's Victims, and Kogios. But don't worry, they'll be stronger than ever next time when we engage in even more haunted holiday hijinks. Oh, Betty!